Welcome back to another episode of Africa Event Connect, the podcast where we dive deep into the power of events to shape industries, economies, and global conversations. I'm your host, Projeni Pather, and today we have an incredible guest with us, someone who's been instrumental in positioning Africa as a key player in the global business events arena. So if you've ever wondered just how impactful the business event sector is, not just in terms of tourism, but in driving trade, investment, and economic growth, then this is the conversation for you. And with Africa's increasing presence on the world stage, especially with the upcoming G20, now is the perfect time to talk about how business events can be leveraged for even greater influence. Joining to me today is none other than Amanda Kotze-Nhlapo. Amanda is a powerhouse in the global business events industry. As the former Chief Convention Bureau Officer of the South African National Convention Bureau, she has been at the forefront of shaping Africa's presence in the meetings and events sector. She's worked tirelessly to bring world-class conferences, exhibitions, and trade shows to Africa, and she continues to champion the industry in new ways. She's currently involved in some really exciting projects, including the upcoming African Coffee and Tea Expo in Rwanda. And we can't wait to hear more about all of this. So Amanda, it's such a privilege to have you here today. We are thrilled to hear from you. So welcome to Africa Event Connect.
Thank you so much. Really a privilege also for me.
So much to share, and I know we have to get started, but we will get through it together. And I'm just excited with all the content that you have to share and to get into that brain of yours that's been in this industry for so long. So to get started, let's start with like a big picture overview, right? Business events are seen as key drivers of economic activity. So from your experience, how do you believe that they are shaping industries and economies in Africa as a whole?
So, I think I need to start with Africa.
Yes.
For us to just look at why is it important. I was just doing some research again to just brush up the numbers. And, Africa will be in 2035, we will have the youngest continent, we will surpass the China and India and so on. Wow. And, that I think that says it all, because business event is about knowledge exchange, about development, about economic development, So I think as a continent, it has all the potential, and I'm talking about the whole value chain, and the whole acronym MICE, the meetings, the incentive, the conventions, and the exhibition industry. I still believe up till today that the exhibition industry is the biggest opportunity for the continent. And the reason why I say that, and to come back to the economic drivers, or how it shape it. So why do we get together? That is the main question that we need to ask ourselves. We get together so that we can learn, so that knowledge exchange, to be innovative, to hear about new innovative stuff. And, I have to say, Africa, how innovative are we? Because we always have to come up with a plan. Things are not always, I think in developing countries generally, things are not just, it just doesn't come. And also, I do believe that in the environment that we are a very innovative continent, where there are always new ideas and new stuff that is happening. So that for me, the second thing that I believe is that business networking, or third thing after innovation is business networking. When we get together and you meet someone else, there's always new investment opportunities that come out. There's always new ideas that come out. Businesses, I keep on saying that business events for me, and it's co-opetition. Whilst we compete, we also coordinate and we also work together, because yes, we will maybe bid for a big meeting, maybe more than one Africa country, and yes, one will win it. But it actually, because it comes to the continent, there is that opportunity to also co-op,
Yes.
And I think that is the beauty of this. We compete in our working together. So that is why I believe that business events are those that gets together the brains of the world and of the continent. Whether it is an international meeting or just a regional meeting, it's always different people from different places, different cultures, and in a melting pot. And we know that in our own country, with 11 or 12 official languages, that this melting pot actually make us to survive. It come up with new ideas, and young people are people that are so into all the new technology and all the new stuff that they are the future. And our continent, we are blessed that we will have them. So for me, that is why I believe that business events, in the different sectors, And I mean, we will get to, hopefully we will get to G20, because I think it's very important for us to go there. But if you are looking at that agenda and that opportunity that, those sectors, that opportunity that it gives to us as a continent, for economic development.
So do you think that the industry has evolved? And if so, like what are the significant ways we've evolved in the past decade?
Yeah, I think if we focus on Africa, the first thing that I have to say is that more countries on the continent focus on the meetings industry or the business events industry. That by itself is already a big plus. And how it evolved, And so where it was always South Africa that lead, there are many others that now not necessarily have the infrastructure around meetings yet. And if I say infrastructure, I'm not talking about a building. I'm not talking about planes necessarily that land. Of course, all those things are important for a business events destination. But I'm talking about people. Yes. I'm talking about convention bureaus. I'm talking about professionals, that have these kind of companies. And you can see that it definitely, is taking up. And, the free trade, and I think that whole policy or strategy is also helping, and that is something where we started to not be dependent on from outside, but we are from inside out.
So do you think now that all of these countries within Africa are realizing the opportunity that the business event sector bring to their economies?
I absolutely think there is, there's always a positive force for us to be behind. And I will say why. Because when the meetings industry started, it was always about tourism.
Yeah.
Or visitors, or, people that come to you. And then we would count the numbers in, not in economic development, necessarily, but we will count it in numbers of bed nights, and flights and people going to restaurants and all this stuff. Of course, we consume that, but that's not what we're about. And I think for the fact that we are behind in those development, when it came to us, that was the focus. And I think for all the countries, the countries understand. And if you are looking on the continent, and I'll just use Rwanda, Convention Bureau as an example, they went the same way as what Cape Town went, where they actually have it as part of economic development. And if you are looking in South Africa, there's many of the local convention bureaus or provincial convention bureaus that are, they coupled with the economic development department. Right. And so I do believe that I think there can be much more that we must do, because, Australia really leads for me, leads in that way. They really sit around the table when those economic and financial discussions and development discussions of their country, their minister or their professionals will be around the table.
And that's so interesting you say that when you speak about Australia particularly, because, Australia is a long haul flight for anybody in the world, and if international events are being hosted there and they're able to bring people there, we often use the excuse that South Africa is a long-haul destination for many countries. But I think Australia is a little bit further than us, so we have no excuse.
Definitely not. And it's our academics and professionals. I think that is the important thing, the importance that we need to look at business events. What can it bring for me? Why must I actually go and attend my conference, Yes. I think that is where we need to, because first and foremost, if we talk about business events, the purest part of it is that knowledge exchange, yes. is that economic development, even if we look at how expos, yes. exhibitions change, and I mean, you are right in that, Projeni, that all the learning, the new, it's not just, I'm going to just showcase new machinery. I will have alongside it, I will have a conference, or I will have seminars or workshops. Also important what we call what, but yes. Because the knowledge exchange, is so important, and it goes along with selling. And I think that for me, is really where we really need to focus, and where we need to get our governments to understand what the power of the meetings industry, or the business events industry, as we like to call it. Other people sure. still call it MICE. And I go back into that now as I go alongside in the continent. But I think that is the important thing, is that we really need to understand what can it do for your country. Absolutely. And I used many examples in my previous life, as when I headed up the National Convention Bureau. There are so many events where we were center, in the world, in that sector, just because we hosted that event, and now with the whole thing around AIDS and the aid that is not coming anymore. If I think of AIDS and what we actually got on the continent, but specifically in this country, out of just hosting the AIDS conference, it's phenomenal,
And as you speak about that, I mean, that's what I want to turn to in terms of those legacy, large scale events, and that impact on the city or the province or the country as a whole. I mean, let's talk about that.
Yeah.
Right?
So I always say that I want to be controversial and go into numbers versus numbers. Mm-hmm. And for me, a very small event can be extremely powerful. It's about the content.
So, and whereas normally, like I'm saying now, large scale events, the impact of large scale events, but it doesn't have to be large scale.
No, because it depends on what you are looking as impact, you see. Okay. So if a large scale event, of course, it contributes to, I know, for instance, South Africa, we have, by, I don't know when, but 15 million that they are aiming to, tourists. Yes. And I want to say visitors, because, our delegates are in there. So of course, big events is then very important, yes. Large scale events. But it depends on the content, because sometimes a small event's impact can be so big. If you are just thinking of the CEO's forum, where all kind of CEOs from around the continent come together. I mean, just imagine the stuff that comes out of it, the knowledge exchange, the business networking, the business investment that comes out of those kind of discussions, I'm looking at something like the mining in Indaba. Yeah. Yes, it's a large scale event, but it's not that kind of event where there are like 12,000 people, That's true. And so with the big events, your direct economic spend is huge,
Of course.
So many people, so many nights, they do all these things. But we must also, for those events, then measure what the content is and how that content that is discussed and exchanged, what is the impact on that specific sector. And I think, and it's just because it's fresh mining in Indaba. If we look at, our issues that we have on the continent with mining, and then the discussions and the outcomes, of the mining in Indaba, new innovative ideas, how can we actually make it better? because the environment is so important in that sector. So there's another sector, and that is the thing about the meetings industry or conferencing, is that it can never stay just with the one. It always have a ripple effect, on so many more.
So what do you think is Africa's competitive edge in the global business event sector? What do you think?
I think we have everything that we need to discuss on a specific level.
Mm-hmm.
What do I mean?
What do you mean by that? Yes, let's go deep.
Agribusiness,
right?
Agri. Mm-hmm. I mean, we are the food basket, I mean, like Africa needs to produce food, and we need to produce food in an environment that is healthy, And so we also need to then have all these new ideas that need to come forward. So when I say that we have all the things that we need to, it's all the sectors that we can have those deep discussions. And because we are in Africa, and as I said, because we need to come up with some plans, I think the conversations that happen, or the learnings that happen when people are coming to us, or do it in Africa, I think the outcomes, the legacy, you talked about legacy, the outcomes, the impact of those outcomes is so much more because we are in a developing continent. When you're in a first world country or continent, I do think that it's very academic sometimes, Of course, huge research, can we walk away from places like, say, Edinburgh, or Scotland with all the stuff that they, research and the research councils? No, we can't. But I think when those minds and those brains are coming to us as Africa for who we are, innovative, development orientated, so the legacy is so much bigger. So for me, and then as I said, I think there's a focus. People do understand. I'm looking at the African Union, just this weekend with that meeting that they had, and all the solutions, because that's what meetings is about. Yes. It's coming out with solutions. And so I think we are a continent that is driven by solutions, outcomes, and so from that perspective, I think it is important. And then the other thing is there's parts of Africa that is so close to the developing world, yes. And that must help us all, we are so much linked. We were all, most African countries were colonialized, and so that link we never have, it's not gone. We have French, on the continent, very much Portuguese, yes. On the continent, and so that link us also. It makes it easier to have those linkages and relationships. So and then of course infrastructure. I do believe that we do have the infrastructure. We have convention centers, we have flights, we have airlines. It's not always easy, and we can do still a lot. And there's a huge opportunity for investment in the area of infrastructure, specifically for the meetings, the business events industry.
Sure. Now, we're talking about our competitive edge, but as much as we have all of this, we're constantly trying to do better, right? As a continent, as a country. And let's look at what do you think are the key challenges that we can change into opportunities? In hosting international business events on the continent. Yes, we do have some challenges, but some of those challenges we can make them into opportunities, and they're just blatant opportunities that are probably not being addressed as well, that you've had perspective on because you've been in this for so long.
Yeah, I think, like I said in the beginning, I think one of the biggest opportunities that we have that we don't tap into enough is the exhibition industry, and I have to say that because we like I said, we have a young continent. Yeah. People need everything that you can think of, fridges, TVs, whatever. So all those things are an opportunity that we don't at the moment. I think we focus too much on maybe and I need to be careful on what I'm saying because I don't want to be politically not right. But what are we manufacturing? I think that is important because the more that we can manufacture. And so one of the opportunities that I believe that from a government's perspective is open those doors, help people, because if they are doing manufacturing, we have a set of point, where we can have those kind of trade exhibitions, not just, and I use Mining Indaba again, just look at what happened there. I will use another one that every year happen on our continent is Kotze-Nhlapo, I mean, it's the biggest in the Southern Hemisphere. And if you think of, I was listening to, I think it was last year that they say on how many every 5 or 6 minutes a private jet is landing in a strip that no one would ever think that you can have an event there. But that is the power of exhibitions or trade expos and even consumer, exhibitions. So I think there's a huge opportunity for that. The second thing that I think is a huge opportunity, because we are a developing continent, we have multinationals that more and more come onto the continent, open, business, corporates. And the thing about that is that there's a huge opportunity for the incentive world because we have the perfect product. Are we looking after that product? Not always. Are we developing that product? So that is an opportunity that we can really look into it and say, how do we develop this? How do we conserve, what we have? Because people want to have the unique experience of walking with a lion or something, or learn from the lion lesson, the Africa lion lesson, right. On how do you actually shape leadership, and teamwork, So that is Africa, we are coming from a people that were sitting around the fire to talk to each other, that the drums were from the southern to the north, tips of our continent, talking to each other. And I think that's an opportunity for us to go back, the unique cultures that we can put forward, Do
you think as a continent we're listening enough to the people that want to come here or have come here? Because I think very often, like you're saying, people associate, it's our wildlife, our nature reserves. We've got some beautiful cultural diversity and experiences and all of that. But there's obviously an opportunity, and with new generations coming on, they see it in a different way. So it's not that these products, it's like been there forever, but you've constantly got to reinvent it, right? Modify.
Absolutely. And we're in a technology era, it's the easiest thing, and again, another opportunity, for Africa, because I was reading and I can't remember, but it was like a lot of people that just have like cell phones on the continent. We are one of those continents with the most. You have it in your hand, and so if we are doing that in that space, why are we not having it transfer into where we are? And I think that is another opportunity that we definitely have to enhance, and it's a technology enhancement, and the opportunity for then to make sure that we are connected, that there are Wi-Fi. Those things are important, and I do believe that the environmental impact we always need to keep on top of mind, because as we are seeing, Africa is really getting the end of the stick when it's coming to this. And I don't believe that we actually the ones that are furthering the bad. So that for me is also something that we need to stand up. And as you say, listen to what people want. Legacy is such an important thing now, and I keep on saying, in developing worlds, legacy is a difficult thing to actually further. But in developing worlds, it's the easiest thing. And we need to look at legacy projects, not about just the money that goes into it, because I do believe that, and this is why I love the business events industry, because it's a learning platform. It's an empowering platform, You get empowered by meeting the professor from, Harvard that come and do a talk here, and you are just a student, in a university. You have immediate access to that. You don't have to go to Harvard. Exactly. You get it through your conference,
Yes. And 100
others. Exactly, Exactly. And so for me, I think, it's important that we also stand in the front of what will drive us, what will make us better. Use business events as that platform,
Now that we've set the tone for Africa and the business events industry, understanding that, let's move on to some up and coming events like G20, for example, happening this year, and that relevance to business events. I mean, the significance of Africa's growing role in that global forum like G20 is going to be monumental for us. How so? Let's go into those details. How do we, by just us participating in events like G20, for example, how is it impacting our business event sector and the landscape?
I thought of it so much when the moment that it was announced about G20. But let me go back to 2024. In our country, we had, I want to say this because I want the business events industry on this continent, and specifically also in South Africa, not to let this opportunity pass without us being at the table. I think it's so important. No one, if we not start to be at the table, we're not going to be asked to be at the table.
That's true.
We don't
and raise our hand. Yep.
I was thinking of some, and I wrote this. I said that the relevance to the MICE industry or the business events industry is a landmark event for global cooperation and industry growth. That's what it is. It is the opportunity that we have. It's not just about the agendas, because, if you look at what will be discussed with the biggest economies in the world, that will come to us, forget about the number of people. Just think of what will be discussed. What will be the outcomes of those discussions? If you go back into other G20 meetings, and why was G20 in the first place, put together? It was to come up with solutions for economic development, for financial woes that we have in the world, and all those things. And so if you then look at at what will be discussed, that gives us an agenda for the next, I want to say, 10 years. Of which sectors do we need to focus on? Because those are the ones where people want to come. And the meetings, bid for those meetings, get those meetings going, get those expos going. If it doesn't exist, create it for Africa.
So legacy you're talking about,
absolutely.
That and then, with us.
So yes, about what? But then I think one of the biggest opportunities, and I want to go back to 2024. In 2024, South Africa went to the polls. We voted.
Yes.
So did Rwanda. So did many other countries. And, I do believe that it's the biggest opportunity that we miss as a meetings industry to actually organize. It's the biggest event that your country ever can have. Imagine how many millions are voting.
Sure. Yeah.
There's no bigger congress
that is true.
Or convention.
That is true.
And my question is, where are we as an industry? Are we sitting around the table and say, listen, we are doing conferencing all the time. We have all the means, registration systems, IT systems, all the stuff that you need, setting up a place, making it easy to attend,
convenient, accessible.
And what is those and we're not there, so I wanted for us to think about it. Let us not get G20 pass like the voting passed, and in voting, in South Africa and any other, it's to the smallest places. We want to get small places involved. There, we were there. We could actually get people and industries and businesses involved, small businesses involved, in this huge event. So I want to link it, and I know that people are going to say like, no, this can't be. Yes, it is. It is the biggest congress that you can have in your country. All the event management principles are supposed to be, applied. Now I want to come then now to G20. Let us not get that past us, as an industry. It will give us the opportunity to have all eyes on us, that we can, do such a huge events. We can stage it. We do have all the means. We have the convention centers or the venues, and even unique venues, where no one else in the world. There are places that can't do what we can do. Having under the stars a huge event on a landing strip.
Yeah.
Yes, we did it before.
But I like what you're saying in terms of like the opportunity to. I mean, there's events happening on a monthly basis. Yeah. Different government departments, different ministerial departments are hosting their own events, and for the international community. But beyond that, I like what you're saying about the after, because we're bringing all these people here in these different sectors, and the aftermath is what we need to deal with in terms of being able to use that opportunity to bring them back and to bring those events in those different sectors, right?
Absolutely. And the thing for me also is that what about the investment opportunities? We need to really, it's one of those moments in the history of our country and of our continent. It's like a World Cup moment, where we really need to make sure that our house is really in order, and that we are showcasing the best that we have, the silverware we need to come and take out and show to the world that Africa can do it. And it's not just a South Africa thing, it is an Africa thing again. South Africa need to play its role. Yes. I just want to quickly touch on what are those topics that will be discussed. Economic recovery, strategies for post-pandemic recovery and sustainable growth. Are we totally out of it? No. We know we're not, climate change. I mean, how important, huge. Initiatives to combat climate change and promote green energy, global health, strengthening global health systems and pandemic preparedness, and trade and investment, enhancing international trade and investment flows. And then I know that our president, as the president of G20 for 2025, said that food security. But it goes with climate change, But food security is so important. And it's such an important topic, not just, as I said, in the country, but on the continent. And so as Africa, let us bring the best of our agriculture researchers, agriculture, new ideas, innovative ideas. As we spoke about NAMPO, yes. I mean, NAMPO will have, I'm sure, a G20 agenda, for 2025. But those are the opportunities. And then, as I said, where's those meetings? Bring them, because they've been here. They've seen now. Yes. Let us go for it, because it will be so much easier to win those meetings, when people already had a taste on what we as a country and as a continent can put forward.
Yeah, I mean, we're constantly trying to bring buyers into the country and finding the right catch to get them here. Yeah. And here is the ideal opportunity. Yeah, like you're saying. Wonderful. G20, absolute opportunity. And I hope, and I'm sure you're available as well for people in the industry to reach out to.
I just think that let us not miss the opportunity, let us be there so that we can showcase, what the business events industry in South Africa and Africa can do.
Absolutely. Now let's move on to, I know you've been doing some work in Rwanda.
Yeah, right? Beautiful country.
So Tell us about that. You were working on an event there. I know you were an advisory to them. Tell us more about your experience working on that side of the country, of the continent.
Yeah. I must say East Africa very much busy. West Africa very much busy. Yeah. As a continent, there's really a lot of movement. And that's why I'm saying the competition. And it's fantastic to think that in a week's time, we will have Meetings Africa, the biggest showcase, of the industry, the business events industry, to the world, of Africa, what Africa can offer. And I wish them all the luck and best, that we will wow, the world, because that is the beauty for me of an Africa exhibition, is that, and that's I want to lead into this project that I'm also involved in Rwanda, one of the projects. It's an opportunity, because everyone that wants to buy Africa, So it's all about coffee and tea.
Okay.
And you know what? The first thing when I was approached that got me is that here is another commodity, another product that is coffee originated from Africa, nowhere else. It went all over the world by people taking it from here. And again, it's like our minerals. And that is why when I speak about Africa, I just think we have everything, that people can talk about and can come and learn and bring new ideas and, have new ideas with each other, exchange new ideas. And, the thing that really gets to me about this commodity, like others, like your gold and your diamonds and whatever, is that we are giving the stuff raw and we buy it back when it has value.
Yeah.
And coffee is one of the commodities that it's in line with gold, when it's coming to economic impact. And so, but if you think about it, that coffee is consumed by the first world.
Yeah, that's true.
But it's actually growing.
Yeah, in the developing world.
In the developing world. And if I'm talking about, and tea, basically the same. We have some of the best teas on this continent. And if you think of other, places, developing South America, it's a developing continent,
That's true.
Same thing. They also, they didn't start coffee, because people will say that. And this is the thing
Everybody
that got
wants
to
me.
me.
Claim it.
Yeah, and this is the thing that got to me, because I said to them, we need to claim that space.
Yeah.
People need to know that coffee is from this continent.
Yeah.
And we need to start to build the brand around it. And, for me, coffee goes with meetings.
Yes.
Because I'm like, there's always a coffee break or a tea break, and also, where conversations are around tables, when people have hospitality. So the project is a Africa Coffee and Tea Expo, hosted in Rwanda. Rwanda has of the best coffee. I am told that there's hardly any coffee blend where you won't find actually Rwanda coffee in it. So there's many other countries. Kenya, with their teas also, Ethiopia, and so I can continue. I mean, we are really blessed on the continent when it's coming to the coffee and tea. And then, of course, we know that in South Africa, we have rooibos tea, that there is no other place in the world where it is naturally growing. And, and it's only here. And so it's again that unique thing. How do we use the business events industry to build our brand? And this is really what this is about, is that we want to bring the buyers, to come into our continent, and then specifically in Rwanda. It is It's owned by Rwanda Events or developed by Rwanda Events, a private company, events company, but also working very much with the Agricultural Research Council. And as well as the Rwanda Convention Bureau. Okay. So it's really a coordination and cooperation, between them, and really to put our coffee and tea in the eyes of the world.
True. Now, how can we? Similar to that, how can we utilize these sector-specific exhibitions? How can we use them to contribute towards the regional and continental trade strategically, of course?
Yeah, and that's the thing, because again,
that's what you're doing
this is exactly what we are doing. Is that you and I can compare that, like I said, with the mining in Indaba, where it's then everyone is talking that week. Talking about the mining in Indaba. We, the same with the coffee and tea and so many others, that one can put out there. It's really to make sure that these are investment opportunities, there are opportunities of new machinery, new ways of growing, making sure that the environmental, so there is alongside it also a conference or a conference, I will call it, where we will, have speakers and panels and discussing how can we do this, and I keep on saying, and how can we build the brand of Africa? Yes. With these commodities, exactly with these commodities that that we have, that people can know. The best coffee is not in Australia, but the best coffee is in. And I laugh because the reason why I'm saying it, I am a tennis fanatic, and I was watching the Australian Open, and up come the number 2 in the world, women, Iga, and Swiatek, and she says, and they ask her, no, the best coffee is the best coffee in, in Melbourne or in Sydney or whatever. And I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, no, the best coffee is in Africa, But of course, because the product, comes from Africa, of course.
But
they then put it into this beautiful coffee shops, and Melbourne has a renowned coffee culture,
Okay.
And so. Yeah, there's Africa, So I was saying, no, you just need to say, where does it come from? And that is what we need to grow in Africa,
Right.
And that is what we want to do with this kind of expo.
And again, it's contributing to that trade,
Absolutely.
Because Australia is trading with Africa to get that raw ingredient to position them as the best coffee in Australia.
Yeah.
But I suppose those are the opportunities that these niche expos can bring us, right? And you spoke about it earlier as well when you were saying, we talk about the large legacy events, and again, you spoke about the smaller events, and I think niche events, some of them are massive, but there are quite a few that are smaller or start off smaller, but they have the opportunity to grow and the impact is great, right?
Absolutely. I think, with Coffee and Africa Coffee and Tea Expo, it will be, us as Africa, of course, that will, exhibit. And we are getting buyers from around the world. At the moment, there's quite a few coffee events. Dubai just hosted, I think it was in Dubai, Africa World, a coffee world,
Okay.
or coffee world or something like that.
That would have been upsetting if Dubai took
or
Africa
World Coffee or something. World Coffee or something. And, and so people are, if you just think of Nespresso, and I'm giving them now free airtime. Can you see now that is what we do, as you say, trading and, what is the sectors and how does businesses actually, but if you think about them, and the power that they have way beyond coffee.
That is
way beyond coffee now.
Just using the coffee analogy, like you're saying, and if you think about all the coffee brands in the world, like, Nespresso.
Yeah.
And, there's some massive coffee brands that, but their roots come back to Africa.
Their roots come back to Africa, or it goes back to the, of course, to South America,
Okay,
but because, but the original.
Yeah.
It's here.
Exactly.
It's like it's the same thing as us, where we are saying that it all starts here. where we are in Gauteng, in South Africa, in Johannesburg, and that's why that was one of the other things that I do believe, that if you touch the soil of Africa, you will know who you are. It's here. It started here. The first people, it's here. And so that is why I do believe that we have that magic thing that will bring every person back to the continent where it all started, where people can understand who they are is to understand where you're from.
That is true. So we just have to activate the magnet, right?
Absolutely.
Now, let's look at the future of this business events industry in Africa. And let's start by, your previous career in the South African National Convention Bureau. But let's look at the evolving role of the convention bureaus in this post-pandemic Africa, right? I mean, you've been there at the heart of it. And I think you've got a great perspective being there and being through the pandemic and seeing where we are now and still being so instrumental in this industry. What is that role?
To attract. I think your convention bureaus, and that's why it's so important that we keep on growing the convention bureau industry. Convention bureau is the official marketing and selling,
yes,
brand.
That's a good place to start. Let's start there for our listeners who don't understand why was the Convention Bureau set up? What is the purpose of it and how has that evolved? Let's start there maybe.
Yeah, I think convention bureaus are really that one-stop shop. I always use that because that is really what it is. It's a organization that needs to position your country, your destination as the preferred meetings, business events destination. And how do we do that? By simply supporting your private sector, for them to get the meetings or to bid for the meetings, as we say. And so it's important that brand work, or that positioning work. I don't want to call it just brand work because then we're back into marketing and we actually selling.
That's true.
It is a business. It is the easiest way is that to understand is that if the event is happening in Kenya, you can't go to South Africa to attend the event. No. And that's the difference between a leisure and business events or a delegate, a leisure visitor. Leisure visitors have the whole world to choose from every time that they make a decision.
That's true.
A business event delegate has no choice. They have to go where the meeting will be hosted. And that is why it's so important for us to bid for those meetings, to attract those meetings. We need to work hard. Put the best bids forward. We have the tools to do it. We have the product to do it. So we just need to get our academics and professionals to understand the power when they bring their meeting, their sector to your continent and country. That the impact is vast, not just on young people, on business, on investment. That is what it's all about. Business events are not travel agents. They are change agents.
I love that.
And that is I have huge respect for James Latham that are doing the iceberg, series. And the iceberg series is about, we want to talk about all that is above the iceberg, the tip. But what about that is the foundation, of that iceberg. Underneath? And underneath is all these things that we're talking about, learning. It's not about the numbers and, yes, that is important. And of course, we want to contribute, It's wonderful if the people come. Delegate boosting, that's why we need to do delegate boosting, so that we make sure if they're supposed to come 2,000 people, they mustn't come only 1,000 because we are in Africa. We want the 2,000.
Absolutely.
And you talked about, our that we see it as a disadvantage, this whole thing, that we are far or that we are, long haul. But there's another disadvantage. That disadvantage of can Africa. And we hosted so much.
Yeah.
And we proven ourselves so much.
So many times, yeah.
And but still, there's still a question on, so the brand Africa, we need to stand together so that people can know, yes, we are developing, but that's the positive.
So as brand Africa, that means as African countries, we need to collaborate.
Absolutely.
Right? How can we collaborate to strengthen the continent's position?
I think firstly, we can collaborate by making sure that when we host something, it's of excellence. That's the first thing. We can learn from each other.
Mm-hmm.
That's why it's so important that we do belong to our own professional associations,
yes.
Where we have, organized business, that we come together, we learn from each other, what worked, what doesn't work, That's the first thing that I do believe. Bidding, when there's a bid out, we can support each other, It's not always to say that you have to have the bid. You can actually just get your professionals to stand with a Kenya, stand with a Ethiopia, stand with whoever to say, okay, you know what, this one we are going to win for Africa. And I think it's important because, and then the other thing is that Africa associations need to make sure that we are rotating amongst each other, that we are supporting each other,
Yes.
We really need, it's like doing dress rehearsals, when we are, but it's important that Africa trade with Africa. I mean, there's Africa trade, with the Africa Union, they opened the door. Let us do that, also with, the business events industry.
And I'm assuming as well, I mean, like when we all travel, when you're going onto a continent, you generally want to go to more than one state or country, right? And we have neighboring countries that makes it so accessible, or a short flight away. So, the packaging, the way we package the continent is can provide great experiences for our visitors, right?
Absolutely, and I think the importance of that is if we have a so here's the thing, and I'll use a real example again. When the AIDS Congress happened those years ago in Melbourne.
Oh yes.
Because Melbourne and Cape Town is part of the Best Cities Global Alliance. So
Right.
It's one of those that were rotating. It didn't go to Cape Town; it went to Durban, and there's a good reason.
Okay.
There's a good reason why it was the right place to host it. With the highest AIDS rate at that stage and things like that. I mean, today we sit with the best AIDS research.
Wow.
Well, worldwide, actually, globally, that is in Durban, or in KwaZulu-Natal. And so, but when that event was in Melbourne,
Yeah.
there were like 500 or 600 Africans. But when that event was here in our country, on the continent, it was thousands,
Bursting. Yeah.
of Africans that can come. And so that is another thing, that is important, that we also support each other's events, and that we bring the event to the continent so that, we all can, young and older, and mature and, experience can brush shoulders.
Absolutely. Now, as we conclude this interesting discussion today, what advice do you have from all your personal experiences, all your travels, and to events internationally and locally, and the African continent, for organizers looking to bring international business events to Africa?
Find your client. Find the client, we can't wake up one day and think, oh, I want to bring the whatever event, the heart surgeons. But I'm not a heart surgeon. I'm not a heart surgeon,
Yes.
And I think it's important that we that we can see or that we can foster those relationships between our academics, our professionals, and also then the business events industry, Secondly, very important that we know which sectors we want to further. Align your sectors or align the meetings that you go after with the economic sectors of your country. What is beautiful about Africa is that we have most of it. It is overlapping. We will all have agriculture. We will all have mining. We will all have health. Certain ones more than others, and then focus on those ones. So it's important that as a country, when you are looking at bringing these events or bidding for these events, know what it is that you are going to help your government to fulfill their objectives and strategies. That is the most important thing. If we are looking at the African Union and what they are standing for, development of leadership and all those things, that is something that we all want, isn't it? Yep. But there are international organizations that we can bring, that is also in that field, of expertise. And that is that we all need, because as we said, we have a young continent, and people need to understand and know how to, isn't it?
That's true.
So for me, important that you have to know your sectors, know the sectors that you are in, link up. Private sector and public sector has to work together. They can't, when I was at the Convention Bureau, I always say to people that you're going to bid where? In the air, because we don't own anything. As a Convention Bureau, you don't own a convention center, you don't own the product, you don't own the organizers, and we are not. Convention bureaus are not a venue, they're not an event organizer. That is for the industry. And so as an industry, we really need to collaborate and make sure that we are on top of our game. I also believe that empowerment and learning, even in our own industry, and having that designation is very important. We as an industry need to make sure that we are professionalized, that we know what it means. If you say that you're an event management company, what does that mean? Because you only need one bad event, and the whole world will say, never again. We are already on our back foot. We, for two reasons, on our back foot. Can they do it? And they don't have the money. I have a huge issue with the rest of the world that expect from us, or let me rather say and I want to say specifically the association world, where we fall in the trap of big events like Olympics and World Cups, where there's so much money that a country needs to put on the table.
Exactly.
What is it then about at the end? It can not then be, and that is a discussion for another day, because it's extremely controversial,
sure.
But it's something that Africa can lead to say, what is it then about? If we are saying that these business events are coming to your country to leave legacy, to create a platform to learn, create a platform to collaborate, create a platform to be empowered. What is it then about? If you are saying it's that you need to have a big bulk of money must be put on the table. It can't be. Because then we are not serious on why we are hosting business events in our countries.
Absolutely. That is so true. That is so true. I mean, I agree. I mean, knowing your sector, again, like you're saying, collaboration, the power of learning is some things that we just take for granted. And we need to continually highlight it. And again, I love what talking about that we're such a young continent, and that exchange of knowledge, again, is so important, so that we can continue to build those industries and build those sectors.
Absolutely.
Right?
If you know something, if you learn, if you know something, you can make money.
Yeah.
In Afrikaans, it says kennis is mag. And, and that's really, knowledge is power.
Yeah.
That is what it is, We just had, celebrated Madiba, with when, the 35 years from that he walked out of prison and be free and brought us freedom. And, if I think of how important he always put that education, learning, how important it is, to understand each other, understand cultures, but also learn. And that at the end of the day, it will bring you development and financial gain.
Of course. Amanda, thank you so much for the insights and sharing your experiences and your personal experiences. It is truly, truly inspiring and insightful. And I know all our listeners are going to be intrigued. If anybody wants to reach out to you, is that all right?
Absolutely. They can always reach out to me. No problem.
We'll find Amanda on LinkedIn, I'm sure. Good place to start. Or does Amanda have a personal website going now?
No personal websites. No.
But thank you so much. I'm sure you'll have people reaching out to you. We truly appreciate you, all that you've done so far, and all that we know that you will continue to strive for us in this business events industry. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. Really appreciate it. And may we just go from bigger and better and more successful.
Absolutely. Thank you. Amanda's perspective on the power of business events, their economic impact, and Africa's growing role in the global market is truly invaluable. It's clear that business events are not just about bringing people together. They are strategic platforms that drive trade, investment, and long-term growth for our continent. With Africa's increased presence in global discussions like the G20 and exciting industry-specific events, it's an exciting time for our sector. The potential is immense, and today's discussion has only reinforced how crucial it is for Africa to continue positioning itself as a leading business events destination. To our listeners, thank you for tuning in to Africa Event Connect. If this conversation inspired you, don't forget to subscribe, share, and stay connected with us for more discussions that shape the future of business events in Africa. Until next time, I'm Projeni Pather, and this has been Africa Event Connect. Keep building, keep innovating, and keep Africa at the center of global conversations. See you in the next episode.